Hello everyone and welcome back to LewisFiction and welcome to Prewriting Marvel's Spider-Man 3. Now obviously this video will include spoilers for Marvel's Spider-Man 2, so if you haven't managed to watch, play or do whatever with the game yet, then this video will contain spoilers. And with that heads up, let's get straight into the pre-write. So we kick off the story with a time jump and we have to establish a few things first. The first half of this game will be mostly focused around Miles rather than Peter. Although people won't really like this, just hear me out. Peter is taking a backstep from being Spider-Man at the end of the last game, so it makes sense to focus more on Miles during the first half of this game. I'd also like to think that this game will also kind of be like two halves. The first half will be more Miles-centric, while the final half will round off Peter's character and will be more Peter-centric, but we will get to that down the line. However, for this first part, it will be mainly Miles-focused, and Peter will come back into the story later. You will still be able to play as Peter during the first portion of the game, however these will be mainly side quest related missions, mostly to do with Peter and the Emily May Foundation. During the opening of the game, we will have a major action set piece just like we have for the last two games. However, it will be just Miles by himself taking down a villain known as Big Wheel, who will be rampaging through the city. Once again, this will be a tutorial for the game, as well as an introduction into the story and the main conflict. Miles will call Peter during the fight, asking him to help. Miles understands that Peter wants to be himself for a while and settle down, but we get the impression that Miles isn't really ready to take on the whole city on his own just yet. However, Peter declines and will say that he's busy with work and stuff, and that Miles has got this. Peter is under the impression that he thinks Miles is ready to take the city by himself, but Miles is still self-doubting himself in places. The mission will finish with Miles defeating Big Wheel, showing us that he is in fact capable. However, there will be a lot of property damage caused in the process, and a lot of people will be injured. There will be a bunch of things that Miles could have done differently to avoid certain things happening during the fight, and this will spark the main conflict in the game. That Miles, although he is now a seasoned Spider-Man, he will still have a few holes in his abilities and experience. Miles will go on to take the blame from this from J. Jonah Jameson and various other news outlets. Self-doubt and being New York's main Spider-Man will be Miles' main story throughout this game, because especially through the first part of the game, like we mentioned, Miles will be the main character. However, even though we've got all that stuff going on, we will also still catch up with Peter Parker. The Emily May Foundation in Harry's name has taken off. It's finally making him money, and him and MJ are living relatively comfortably. It's not anything massive, but it is sustainable. The Emily May Foundation in this game will almost be a very loose adaptation of Parker Industries. Even though the idea of Peter being rich is something that many fans don't like, if you guys haven't caught on, Peter's character arc throughout this game is going to be centered around him ignoring Miles when Miles needs him the most, ignoring his Spider-Man duties because he believes that his great responsibility lies within the work that he is doing with the Foundation. Not to mention, he also has a great responsibility and owes everything to Mary Jane Watson, the girl and the person that has stood by him this whole time. That way, Peter Parker's life will be drastically improved, and we will get shown this through many scenes. Now, I will admit I wasn't the biggest fan of this during the end of the last game, and I thought the decision to regress Peter to a more background Spider-Man is never in the character's main interests. However, trying to retcon or ignore or even change the ending of the last game would probably make for a more complicated and worse story, so I'm just going to double down on it for now and use this to my advantage when crafting Peter's character arc throughout this game. And it will also, in turn, by the end of the game, add way more depth to his character overall. And also to triple down on Peter's character choices during this portion of the game, MJ will also announce that she is pregnant. Miles can start to realize that Peter is starting to fade away from being Spider-Man, and the pressure is getting to him. Not only is the Emily May Foundation doing really well, but Mary Jane will be pregnant with their child. And it's looking, as the first part of the game goes on, that Peter Parker is less likely to return to being a full-time Spider-Man. Miles will feel down, and we will cut to a scene with him having dinner with his mother at his apartment. Genki and Haley will also join them as we catch up with these characters as well. We learn that Haley and Miles are close to dating. However, a reason that Miles is down during this portion of the story is that school and Spider-Man are starting to get in the way of their relationship slightly. This will be very reminiscent of Peter's early days as Spider-Man, and we will show how Miles is dealing with the same issues, being the one and only Spider-Man, or at least the Spider-Man that is doing most of the stuff throughout the city. We will then get a knock at the door, and Albert and Cindy Moon will also join them for dinner as well. We will get a scene fully introducing us to these characters. Obviously, we met them in the post-credit scene of Marvel's Spider-Man 2, but here we will learn a lot about them as people. We will learn that Cindy is a very mysterious character, and Rio and Miles are really struggling to learn anything about her. She's closed off, she's quiet, she doesn't really talk much, and it's hard to get any sort of conversation out of her whatsoever. We also learn that since the last game, Rio and Albert have actually grown ever so closer together, meaning that Miles wants to get to know Cindy better as well, especially due to the fact that she could end up being his stepsister at some point down the line. Or at least that's the way that it's going. Miles has also got a good relationship with Albert, fulfilling and representing that he has come to terms with his father's death, like it was explored throughout Marvel's Spider-Man 2. We will also learn in relation to Albert that he also does work at Oscorp Industries. Although it will be a passing comment throughout this scene, it will play a major role in the story later on. After this, we will be thrust into the first major mystery of the game, as Miles will encounter a huge monster goblin looking thing. Now, everyone knows that Green Goblin will be a villain in this game. However, the way that I'm adapting the Green Goblin story in this game is going to be slightly different. Now, this massive monster goblin creature that Miles encounters won't actually be the Green Goblin whatsoever, but it will tie very heavily into one of the twists at the end of the first act. This will be the first major boss battle of the entire game. Miles will still call Peter again and ask for backup, but once again, he doesn't answer. Miles eventually takes out the beast, but this is when it's reported by Genki on the Amazing Spider-Man app that several of these goblin monsters, varying in different sizes, are spread out throughout the city. These will be similar to the symbiote nests and Sandman crystals in the last game, and will be optional tasks to complete to gain resources for the skill trees. However, Miles needs to figure out where the source of these monsters came from and what is going on. This is when we will cut to Norman Osborn. Now, Norman will play a huge role throughout this game, as you will probably guess. He'll be focusing on trying to keep Harry alive at all costs, and all of his attention will be focused onto him. We will start to get the idea and impression that Norman has stopped focusing on his political career altogether and kind of fading into the shadows after resigning as mayor. It also doesn't help his reputation at Oscorp as well, as we start to notice a bit of tension between the board and investors, with Norman's constant focus away from the company. The company starts to lose revenue, and Norman isn't as invested in the business as he once was. We will get more emphasis on how Norman's mental health has declined since the symbiote incident and Harry's coma. The doctors will continue to remind Norman that there isn't any point of keeping him alive, but Norman refuses to let Harry go. This is where we are introduced to the G Serum. Now, the G Serum will be revealed to be an amalgamation of components that created Devil's Breath and symbiotic traits that gave the symbiote its healing factor. The G Serum was a last-minute cure to try and keep Harry alive. However, it is still being tested, as it currently is not safe. However, it still has all the baseline components for a cure for his disease, and Norman believes this to be the answer. However, the serum at this point is still very dangerous and still needs more testing. This is when it is revealed that Oscorp has already been conducting human testing in secret behind the board's back with the G Serum, and some tests that went horribly wrong resulted in the subjects escaping, revealing that the monster goblin creatures scattered throughout the city were because of the G Serum. And with that, we come to the end of Act 1. That is it for my first part in the pre-write for Marvel's Spider-Man 3. Obviously, there's a big twist at the end there, but going into parts 2 and 3, you're not going to want to miss them, because we have got huge reveals, huge character moments, and huge stories going forward. So make sure you leave a like, tell me what you think in the comment section down below, and subscribe so you do not miss the next part. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care, and peace.